Billion-Dollar Loser: The Epic Rise and Spectacular Fall of Adam Neumann and WeWork, by Reeves Wiedeman. Introduction. Imagine this for a moment. It's a warm afternoon in New York City, in the Gramercy Park neighborhood. A young architect is walking back to his office when he sees something that makes him stop in his tracks. A man, tall and striking with long dark hair, is striding down the sidewalk, talking frantically into his phone. He's dressed in expensive, casual clothes, a gray t-shirt, black pants. But there's one detail that's completely out of place. He has no shoes. He's walking barefoot on the gritty pavement of Manhattan. Now, New York is a place where you can see almost anything. But this wasn't just anyone. This was Adam Neumann, the founder and CEO of the We Company. At that moment, his company, WeWork, was supposedly the most valuable private startup in America, with a valuation of $47 billion. He was, on paper, one of the wealthiest people in the world. And his empire, the one he had spent a decade building, was in the middle of the most humiliating, catastrophic collapse in modern business history. How does a man who seemingly has everything, the vision, the charisma, the billions in funding, end up walking barefoot through the city, his kingdom crumbling around him? How does a company that promised to elevate the world's consciousness become a global punchline? That is the story we're going to explore today, through the lens of Reeves Wiedeman's incredible book, Billion-Dollar Loser. This isn't just a book about a failed IPO. It's a profound look at the intoxicating power of storytelling, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and a financial system that enabled a fantasy to grow so large it almost felt real. By the end of our time together, you'll understand the magnetic formula that allowed one man to convince the world's smartest investors to pour billions into a simple office rental company. More importantly, you'll see the timeless human flaws that brought it all crashing down. This story is a masterclass, not just in business, but in the seductive dance between genius and delusion. And it all starts with a simple, chilling prophecy from a high school driving instructor. Book summary. Long before Adam Neumann was a billionaire, he was a teenager in Israel, learning to drive. His instructor, a man named Ari Eigenfeld, saw something in the young Adam, a restless, charming, and slightly reckless energy. After watching him behind the wheel, Eigenfeld made a declaration that would echo through the decades. He saw only two possible paths for this young man: either Adam will end up in jail, he said, or he'll become a millionaire. It turns out, he would come dangerously close to both. To understand the story of WeWork, you first have to understand the story of Adam Neumann. His childhood was a blueprint for the company he would one day build. He was born to two young doctors, but his upbringing was anything but stable. He moved 13 different times before the age of 22. His parents divorced when he was young, which he later described as the hardest moment of his life. He was shuffled from Israel to Indianapolis and back again, always the new kid, always the outsider trying to find his way in. He was even dyslexic, a fact that wasn't discovered until he was in second grade because he had become so skilled at charming others into helping him, at getting by on his wits instead of his work. This constant motion, this feeling of being an outsider, created a deep, burning need within him, a need for community, for belonging, for a place to call his own. He found a version of that for a few years at kibbutz near Am, one of the utopian communal farms in Israel. It was here that he saw the power of community firsthand. But he also saw its flaws. He noticed that the man running the silverware factory, working 16-hour days to keep the kibbutz afloat, made the same amount of money as the man who tended the garden for half that time. It never made sense, he said later. This experience planted a seed in his mind, a philosophy that would one day define WeWork, a capitalist kibbutz, a place with all the warmth and connection of a community, but where, at the end of the day, you eat what you kill. After serving in the Israeli Navy, an experience he would later embellish in various ways depending on his audience, he landed in New York City shortly after 9/11, crashing rent-free in his sister Audie's Tribeca apartment. She was a successful model, and he was a 22-year-old freshman at Baruch College, living off his grandmother's generosity. He was, by all accounts, just another young person in the big city, dreaming of making it big. His first ideas were, to put it mildly, not world-changing. He tried to create a company that made women's high-heeled shoes that could collapse into flats. The prototype was so dangerous it nearly sliced a finger off an employee. He then pivoted to a business called crawlers, baby clothes with built-in knee pads. The tagline was, "Just because they don't tell you, doesn't mean they don't hurt." He was a terrible businessman, running on fumes and his grandmother's seed money, burning through cash faster than he could make it. He was on the verge of being forced to leave the country, his student visa expiring. This is a key moment. Adam Neumann was, for all intents and purposes, a failure. He was a college dropout with a failing baby clothes company, a charismatic talker with nothing to show for it. And then, he met Rebecca Paltrow. On their very first date, she looked him in the eyes and delivered a verdict that would change the course of his life. "You, my friend, are full of shit," she told him. "Every single word that comes out of your mouth is fake." She saw right through his act. He talked constantly about money, a sure sign he didn't have any. He was an entrepreneur, he insisted. She saw that he didn't care about baby clothes and wasn't even good at selling them. No one had ever held him accountable like that. But she also saw something else. She saw a raw, limitless potential. "I just knew that he was going to be the man that was going to, hopefully, help save the world," she said later. She became his muse, his spiritual guide, and, as the company would later claim, his co-founder. She introduced him to Kabbalah, a form of Jewish mysticism, which gave his ambition a spiritual language. And she pushed him to stop chasing silly ideas and find his true calling. That calling began to emerge from a simple necessity. To save money on his struggling baby clothes business, Adam moved his office to a cheaper building in Dumbo, Brooklyn. In that same building, an architect named Miguel McKelvey was working for a firm, feeling creatively unfulfilled. Miguel was, in almost every way, Adam's opposite. He was 6'8", even taller than Adam, but he was quiet, methodical, and introverted. He was raised in what he called a matriarchal collective in Oregon, a group of 5 single mothers who raised their children together, a kind of American kibbutz. He was the artist, the builder. Adam was the salesman, the dreamer. Miguel was the steady hand. Adam was the kinetic energy. They were a perfect match. They became friends, bonding over their shared feeling of being outsiders in New York and their frustration with the lack of community in their own apartment buildings. They noticed their landlord was renovating an empty floor in their building. An idea sparked. What if they could lease an office floor, divide it into smaller glass-walled offices, add some cool design, and rent it out to freelancers and small companies who couldn't afford a long-term lease? They called it Green Desk, branding it as an eco-conscious workspace. It was 2008, the height of the financial crisis. Their landlord warned them it was the worst possible time to start a real estate business. But he was wrong. It was the perfect time. Everyone who had been fired from their jobs came, Adam said. The recession had created a new army of freelancers and entrepreneurs who needed a place to work that wasn't their depressing, lonely apartment. Green Desk was an instant, runaway success. Miguel and Adam built the IKEA furniture themselves. They fostered a mini-community with happy hours and coffee chats. But Adam quickly realized their vision was bigger than just one building in Brooklyn. "We're not going to change the world with green," he said. The real magic wasn't the sustainability, it was the community. It was bringing people together. So, in 2009, they sold their stakes in Green Desk for about $500,000 each and set their sights on Manhattan. They had a new name, one that captured their ambition to go beyond just offices, to build apartments, hotels, maybe even banks. It was a name suggested by a friend who had introduced Adam to Rebecca. "It's WeWork," he said. "It's we live, it's we sleep, it's we eat." Their first location was at 154 Grand Street in Soho, a rundown building that needed a complete gut renovation. While Miguel, the architect, got his hands dirty, literally soda blasting the paint off the brick walls himself, Adam did what he did best: he sold a dream. He gave tours of an empty construction site, telling prospective tenants about the gym he planned to build in the basement and the park he was negotiating with the city to build across the street. None of it was true. The basement never got a gym, and the lot across the street is still empty a decade later. But it didn't matter. He was selling a vision. WeWork opened in 2010 and, just like Green Desk, it was a hit. It provided more than just an office. It provided a sense of belonging for a generation of workers disillusioned by the old corporate ladder. It was a startup for startups. They called tenants members to make them feel part of a club. This was the authentic beginning, the simple, powerful idea at the core of it all. But Adam wasn't content with just a successful business. He was thinking bigger. He told his first employees they were working at the next Google. He was building what he called the world's first physical social network. This phrase is the key to everything that happened next. Adam understood something profound about the 2010s. The most valuable companies in the world, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, were tech companies. Real estate companies were seen as old, slow, and boring. Tech companies were seen as fast, scalable, and world-changing. And they were given astronomical valuations by investors. So, Adam decided WeWork wasn't a real estate company. It was a tech company. It was a community company. It was a platform. It just happened to use buildings, the same way Uber happened to use cars. This story was incredibly compelling, and it unlocked the next phase of WeWork's journey, the rocket ship. The company's culture began to reflect Adam's larger-than-life personality. It was a whirlwind of ambition, parties, and a relentless hustle-harder mentality. They started an annual corporate retreat called Summer Camp, which quickly morphed from a small gathering into a massive, multi-day festival that felt like a mini Burning Man, complete with famous musical acts, endless alcohol, and a cult-like devotion to the company's mission. The lines between work and life completely dissolved. Your coworkers were your best friends. Your office was your social club. And your CEO was your spiritual guide. Adam started Thank God It's Monday meetings, mandatory weekly pep rallies where he would deliver rousing speeches followed by rounds of tequila shots. But as the we culture grew, so did the I at its center. A hierarchy began to form. Adam told employees they needed to dress better, pointing out that his own t-shirts were from James Perse and cost $200. I look like someone people want to be, he said. He surrounded himself with a close circle of friends and family from Israel, creating an inner sanctum. His loyalty tests became more frequent. The fun, communal startup was slowly transforming into a kingdom, and there was no question who was king. In one meeting, he made a declaration that captured the shift perfectly. I, he said, am WeWork. This combination of a compelling story and a messianic founder was irresistible to investors in the post-recession era of cheap money. First came Benchmark, a top-tier Silicon Valley venture capital firm that had backed eBay and Uber. They saw past the real estate and bet on Adam's vision and the energy of the community he was building. Their investment in 2012 valued WeWork at $100 million. Then came J.P. Morgan. The company's valuation jumped to $1.5 billion. Then $5 billion. Then $10 billion. With each new funding round, the legend grew, and Adam's belief in his own invincibility solidified. He wasn't just building a company, he was building a We world. He launched We Live, communal apartments, We Grow, an elementary school run by Rebecca with tuition up to $42,000 a year, and even talked about WeWork Mars. The whole operation was fueled by a simple, intoxicating promise to investors: growth at any cost. Adam's attitude was, tell me how much revenue you want me to produce, and I'll tell you how much capital I need. Profitability was a problem for another day. This was the era of blitzscaling, and WeWork was its poster child. And then, Adam Neumann met the one person on earth whose ambition and appetite for risk might have been even greater than his own, Masayoshi Son. Masa, as he's known, is the founder of the Japanese conglomerate SoftBank. He is a legend in the investing world. He famously turned a $20 million investment in Alibaba into a stake worth over $100 billion. He once lost $70 billion in the dot-com crash, more money than any single person in history, and then made it all back, and more. Masa doesn't invest based on spreadsheets. He invests based on what he calls his animal smell. He looks for a sparkle in a founder's eyes. In 2016, Masa was armed with the biggest weapon the investment world had ever seen, the Vision Fund, a $100 billion war chest backed primarily by the Saudi Arabian government. He needed to deploy this capital quickly, and he needed to make huge bets on companies that could, theoretically, reshape entire industries. He first met Adam at a conference in India. Adam, as always, was selling his vision of the we generation. Masa was intrigued. Later that year, he scheduled a 2-hour tour of WeWork's headquarters in New York. He showed up late. "I only have 12 minutes, Masa said. Go." Adam gave him a whirlwind tour. At the end of it, Masa told Adam to join him in his car. He didn't want to see a presentation. He pulled out an iPad, and in the back of the car, he sketched out the terms of a deal. SoftBank and the Vision Fund would invest more than $4 billion into WeWork. The entire exchange, from the 12-minute tour to the signatures on the iPad, took less than half an hour. If WeWork was a rocket ship before, Masa-san had just strapped it to a nuclear warhead. His only feedback to Adam was that he wasn't thinking big enough. "Make it 10 times bigger," he told him. Masa became known as Mr. 10 times. He told Adam, in a fight, who wins, the smart guy or the crazy guy? Adam replied that the crazy guy wins. "You are correct," Masa said. "But you and Miguel are not crazy enough." This was all the permission Adam needed. The era of managing the nickel was over. WeWork went on an unprecedented global expansion, a blitz against its competitors. Adam sent employees to rival office spaces to offer their tenants a year of free rent to switch over. He was using Masa's money as a weapon, a strategy known as capital as a moat. He was trying to drown his competition in cash. The company was hiring 100 new people every week. It was opening 2 new locations a day. The spending was astronomical. The losses were even bigger. In 2018 alone, WeWork lost nearly $2 billion. But it didn't seem to matter. In early 2019, Masa invested another $2 billion, pushing WeWork's valuation to its dizzying peak, $47 billion. Adam Neumann had reached the summit. He had a private jet worth over $60 million, multiple homes across the country, and a level of control over his company that was nearly absolute. He and Masa began plotting their most audacious move yet, a deal codenamed Project Fortitude. It was a plan for SoftBank to invest another $20 billion, buying out all other investors and taking the company private forever. Adam would never have to answer to public markets. He would be king of his own private kingdom, funded by Masa's endless supply of cash. But the world was beginning to shift. The global stock markets grew volatile. The murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi put a harsh spotlight on the Vision Fund's primary backer, the Saudi government. And inside SoftBank, many were growing skeptical of Masa's infatuation with Adam. Just before Christmas 2018, while Adam was surfing in Hawaii, he got a call from Masa. Project Fortitude was dead. The market was too unstable, and the risk was too great. It was a devastating blow. Adam had come to see Masa as a father figure, the one person who truly understood his vision. And now, he had been abandoned. One of his top deputies later said, "I don't think he ever really recovered." Almost all of his actions, from there to the end, tie back to that. With no more private money on the horizon, WeWork was out of options. The company was burning through cash at an alarming rate. It had to go public. What happened next was the unraveling. In August 2019, WeWork released its S1, the document required for an IPO. It was supposed to be a dry, financial prospectus. Instead, it was a bizarre, sprawling document that laid bare all of the company's excesses and contradictions. It opened with a strange, mystical dedication written by Rebecca. "We dedicate this to the energy of we, greater than any one of us but inside each of us." It detailed Adam's immense control, including a provision that would allow Rebecca to help choose his successor. It revealed shocking conflicts of interest, like the fact that Adam had purchased buildings and then leased them back to his own company, personally collecting millions in rent. Or that he had charged the company nearly $6 million for the rights to use the trademark we, a name he didn't even come up with. And then there were the numbers. The document confirmed what critics had suspected for years. Beneath all the talk of technology and community, WeWork was a traditional real estate company with a frighteningly risky business model. It was losing billions of dollars, and its path to profitability was nowhere in sight. The public reaction was swift and brutal. The company, and Adam himself, became the subject of intense mockery and scrutiny. The magical story that had worked so well in private boardrooms fell completely flat under the harsh lights of public opinion. Adam's investor roadshow was a disaster. His charismatic sales pitch, which had once been his superpower, now came across as rambling and desperate. A banker told one of his executives, "Every meeting Adam has, you're losing $1 billion off your valuation." The valuation plummeted from $47 billion to $20 billion to under $10 billion. The IPO was postponed, then canceled. The company was on the brink of running out of money in a matter of weeks. The very investors who had enabled Adam's rise, SoftBank, JP Morgan, Benchmark, now turned on him. The board realized that the only way to save the company was to remove its founder. In September 2019, just 6 weeks after the release of the S1, Adam Neumann was forced to step down as CEO of the company he had built. SoftBank stepped in to bail out the company, but at a valuation of just $8 billion, a fraction of its peak. Adam walked away with a potential exit package worth over $1 billion, a golden parachute that stunned the world. The dream was over. The We company laid off thousands of employees. It sold off the private jet, shuttered WeGrow, and abandoned its grander ambitions. The physical social network had collapsed. The king of the capitalist kibbutz had been dethroned. And the man who was once on top of the world was left to wander the streets, figuring out what had just happened. Commentary. When you step back from the whirlwind of parties, private jets and billion-dollar valuations, the story of WeWork becomes a powerful, almost tragic fable for our times. What can we, especially as young, ambitious people, learn from this epic rise and fall? The first and most obvious lesson is about the immense power of a story. Adam Neumann was, without a doubt, a master storyteller. He didn't sell office space, he sold a vision. He sold community, he sold a new way of life, he sold the idea that your work could be your passion and your colleagues could be your family. He understood that humans aren't just motivated by logic and spreadsheets. We are moved by emotion, by belonging, by the desire to be part of something bigger than ourselves. For anyone looking to build something, this is a crucial insight. Your story, your why, can be your most powerful asset. But this story also serves as a stark warning about the danger of believing your own story too much. Adam's vision started as a powerful tool, but it eventually became a reality distortion field. He started to believe that WeWork wasn't just a real estate company, that its mission to elevate the world's consciousness was more important than its balance sheet. The lesson here is one of humility. A compelling vision is essential, but it must be tethered to reality. At some point, the numbers have to work. Your business has to make sense. As Adam himself said, in a moment of clarity during a commencement speech, If you're not profitable at the end, don't build that. Perhaps the most practical lesson is the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people. Adam built an empire, but he surrounded himself with an echo chamber of friends, family, and loyalists who were either unable or unwilling to challenge him. The one person who told him the unvarnished truth on their first date, Rebecca, later became part of that echo chamber. Imagine if he had kept people around who were empowered to say, "Adam, you're full of shit," the entire story might have been different. As you build your own teams, your own projects, your own life, seek out those who will challenge you, who will ground you, and who will speak truth to you, especially when it's hard to hear. Finally, the WeWork saga is a mirror reflecting the excesses of the last decade. It exposes a venture capital ecosystem that often prioritizes hypergrowth over sustainable business, a culture that celebrates charismatic founders as messiahs, and a system where enormous fortunes can be made by passing risk on to the greater fool. It forces us to ask tough questions about what we value. Is success just about achieving the highest valuation? Or is it about building something real, something lasting, something that truly serves others without losing its soul in the process? The rise of WeWork was a thrilling, intoxicating ride. Its fall was a necessary, and painful, course correction. It reminds us that even the most captivating stories eventually have to face the music. And that true, lasting value is built not on hype, but on substance. Not on a fantasy of but on the quiet daily work of building something that works. We've walked through the epic rise and fall today, but believe me, this is just scratching the surface. Reeves Wiedeman's book is filled with details and moments that bring this incredible story to life in a way a summary just can't. If you're fascinated by the psychology of ambition and the high-stakes world of modern business, I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. It's a page-turner that reads more like a thriller than a business book. You can find a link in the description below. And if this journey gave you something to think about, I'd be so grateful if you'd support our channel by hitting that subscribe button. We're here to explore the great minds and epic stories that shape our world, and I'd love for you to be a part of our community as we continue to learn and grow together.